Welcome to the podcast where relationships, confidence, and determination all converge into an amazing, heartfelt experience. This is Speaking from the Heart.
Welcome back to episode number 96 of Speaking from the Heart. And today's episode is going to be another two-part version in which I had the opportunity to interview Kaneshi Hart. And when I say the opportunity, I mean I was blessed to meet this wonderful young lady. Kaneshi is a Jesus-loving, home-inhabiting businesswoman who does and enjoys a variety of things. In the business world, she hosts the Coach Up podcast, where she interviews 6- and 7-figure coaches about how they built their businesses. She also connects businesses looking for places to advertise with podcasts who have the audiences those businesses want to target. Kaneshi is also a budding trader in the stock market and believes everyone needs to know how to extract money at any time from this multi-trillion-dollar industry. Kaneshi arrived at the wonderful world of podcasting after spending almost 20 years in corporate America, where she led and coached high-performance teams and was responsible for over 600 employees and over $300 million in revenue generation in the course of her work. But now, on the other side of the corporate life, she's enjoying helping other people build their businesses through the power of connection and conversation. You know, there's been a lot of people on my show that have graced me with not only their awesome stories, their wonderful business models, and the people that have made up those stories have some unique twists and turns in their life. But as soon as I knew that Kaneshi was going to flip the script on me, the podcast host of Speaking from the Heart, I knew that there was going to be something a little bit special about this young lady and how she's been able to help so many different people throughout her young career and how she continues to be a high performer no matter where she goes. What makes part one so interesting to me is that it isn't just about what she had to share with all of us, myself included, about what she's been able to achieve as a result of all these setbacks that she's had, which she talks about in part one. But she's been able to get to the other side of that. And she stands on a rock that I have been looking for so long in my life. And I think I finally found what that rock is that I needed to have so that I had some stable ground. No matter what kind of bad messaging you might get in your life, no matter what kind of bad things that might happen, it's about changing your mindset so that you're not stuck in the same 2 out of 10 ways that oftentimes corporate America puts us through. And I think Kaneshi is one of those models of people that will stand on a rock far greater than anybody else because of her trepidation and her willingness to just keep pushing forward, regardless of any setbacks that happen along the way. But with that, let's go to part one of my interview with Kaneshi Hart. All right, we're here with Kaneshi Hart. Kaneshi, thanks for sharing your heart with us today.
Josh, thank you for allowing me to share my heart. I'm looking forward to this conversation, but I am curious, what pricks your heart? Because I want to know if I'm going to be able to do that today with what we talk about. What pricks your heart, Josh?
Oh, I love that question, and thank you for being probably one of the first guests since I've started this, all 95 episodes before, to ask a question like that. I have to tell you, one of the biggest rewards of what pricks and makes my heart just beat out of my chest is just knowing that there are people in this world that have gone through so many different types of situations, and they have gifts that they're willing to share. And that's been really the most rewarding thing that I've been able to do in my life and see other people do. And Kaneshi, I have to tell you that just even with our conversation we had beforehand, I feel like this is going to be an interview quite like I never had before, where you have a lot to bring to the table. So I really want to start off this conversation with you because I think it's really important, especially being a fellow podcast host myself, that you have your own podcast, which I've already introduced to the audience. Tell us a little bit about how you got into podcasting in the first place.
Josh, okay, that's a funny story. I'm going to tell you the medium length. So for those of you all who listen, who are like, oh my gosh, she's about to tell me her whole life story. I'm not, but I'm going to give you enough detail. So I actually started a podcast, Josh, almost 4 years ago, but I was angry So I don't know if you've ever been in that space where you do something out of anger. So like you're getting back at the world in your own way, but you don't really know that that's what you're doing until somebody holds a mirror up to you. So I had started this.
That happened quite a lot 4 years ago. Yes, absolutely. I'm
So you
sorry.
know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Okay. So I started this podcast called Candid Corporate Conversations. You all can go find it. It's still up. I think I did 14 episodes. And then I found Jesus. I knew who Jesus was before, but I hadn't given my life to Jesus Christ. And so in 2020, I gave my life to Jesus Christ. I was born again and started following him. And he was like, shut that podcast down because you're doing stuff out of anger and being hateful to people. And I was like, oh, I wanted to cry, but I was being obedient. So, and I had that podcast because as a woman in the corporate space, Josh, I just thought that women were not getting their due. There are still times that does happen, and we need to be candid and talk about it. So that's where Candid Corporate Conversations came from. So fast forward, I was like, oh, I'm never going to be on a podcast again. I enjoy, Josh, you know this, you podcast, you know this is fun. And I interviewed people, and so it's so much fun. I was like, oh, I'm never going to get to do that again. I moaned and cried about it a little bit, but you move on. And then a year and a half ago, Jesus said, start a podcast. And I was like, yes. And now I'm out of corporate America. I'm no longer working. And he didn't tell me what it was going to be about. So then in January of 2023, he said, start with coaches. Josh, ask me if I'm a coach.
Are you a coach, Kanesha?
Josh, I am not a coach. I was like, Lord, why am I starting a podcast about coaches? I still haven't gotten that answer. I have my thoughts. But he said, the podcast I want you to start is about coaches. So that is how Coach Up was born. And I interview 6 and 7 figure coaches who share how they built their business to that level. Because for coaches like you, Josh, you're a coach. We didn't talk about, I don't know how long you've been coaching. How long have you been coaching?
I find it funny that you even said that you started in January 2023 because that's exactly the year and month in which I started my business, Your Speaking Voice LLC.
See?
So I ended the year around 4 or 5 figures. So I'm not quite ready for your podcast yet, apparently, but I'm getting there.
But you're on your way, right? And that's exactly what it's for. So that's so cool that you started your business this year. And this was the year my podcast started, exactly for that. But I'm not a coach. And so I was like, okay, but all right, Lord, I'm going to do this. So the 6 and 7 figure coaches share how they have built their business to that level so that coaches like yourself can pick up tips, learn their techniques, their strategies so that you can build your business to that 6 and 7 figure business if that's what you want to do. So that's how it came about. And it's funny because I keep telling Jesus, I was like, there are other people that I want to talk to that are not in coaching because I'm not a coach. So why am I getting this? But I really think he knows, Josh, you know, when you need to be told something, but you don't want to listen. I don't know. Have you ever been in that situation?
I have to say, I have been in that situation a number of times. And even in the first year of opening, I felt like there has been a struggle of, am I doing the right thing? Is this really my calling? Am I actually impactful? Am I selling my worth? And I've had a lot of those internal dialogue conversations with myself until I started doing the podcast. And then I realized that these people that I've been interviewing had similar struggles. But then it's all about surrounding yourself with family. To answer your question, yes, I definitely have.
Absolutely. I love what you just said. It's about surrounding yourself with family, right? And even the people that we meet with podcasting, there's some people you just connect with. And they're in that realm of, like we were talking about earlier, it's just a mindset shift. And so I really think the Lord was like, I need to get you some coaching. You're not paying for it yet. So I need to give you some for free at the moment. So that's why I think I get to interview coaches. But that's how it came about.
I love that for many reasons. And I even have said, and my listeners probably get tired of me saying this, but I say it again. I have always appreciated, especially on this podcast, Speaking from the Heart, of all the different perspectives, because I've had people that have fled church and have not looked back. I've had people that have embraced church and they have different viewpoints than maybe even I have. But what I have found always interesting about every single conversation I have is that it challenges the status quo within ourselves, even myself. And I've even listened to some of my older episodes. Yes, for my listeners, I do listen to my own podcast, even after I edit them, because I find it that I take nuggets even afterwards, 6 or 12 months down the road, and I say, wow, I can't believe I listened to this many times and I didn't pick up on this before. Mm-hmm. So it's appreciating those different viewpoints. But Kanesha, you said something that is really valuable, which is that you surrounding yourself with 6-7 figure business owners, which I've had some people on the show that have achieved that, and they have a different mindset compared to other people. So really, my question for you is, what led you into this? I mean, I understand you got laid off 3 times. Is that some of that motivation?
That was, I don't know if it was motivation, Josh, more of a sign being dropped down in front of my eyes. And I just kept missing it until finally I got it. So in the last 4 years, I have been laid off 3 times. So the first time was in 2018, and I was with a company, and the company shut down the location. But the company was still operational. They just shut down the location I was working at. So that was the first time. And I could have, oh my goodness, I don't know if you know this, Josh. So I'm curious. My job was being shipped overseas, out of the country. Like they were moving all of our jobs out of the country. Did you know that the government will pay for ridiculous number of benefits if your job is moved out of the country? For example, they will pay for you to go back to school to get a partial degree or full degree. They will give you an amount of money, like a good amount of money, and will pay for it for free. They will pay for your relocation. Oh my goodness, if you have to move for a job. They provide you with resources for finding a new job and all of those agency, connection, job board, resume writing, all of that. And then there's some other ridiculous, like really amazing statistics. Did you know that the government provides this if your job is shipped out of the country?
I have loved preparing my own taxes the last few years, right before I started my own business, when you go through and they ask you a number of questions about, hey, did your job get relocated? Did you lose your job because of X, Y, and Z happening? And I'm thinking, why are they asking me all these questions? And then I started to think, oh my word, they've been subsidizing all kinds of American taxpayers when these sort of things happen.
Yes.
So in a way, I did. But I also didn't realize after you just said what you said that it was to that degree. So that is impressively crazy in my view.
But when you are the one who's getting laid off, you are very grateful. So I could have taken advantage of all of those benefits, found another job in another industry, gone back to college, got some degree, whatever. I didn't. I applied for another job within my company. Praise the Lord, I got that job. It was very cool because I got to travel to the Dominican Republic on a regular basis on my company's dime. Oh my goodness, so much fun for 2 years. Amazing. But then unfortunately, COVID happened and layoff number 2 happens. Okay. So at this point, I didn't even pay attention, but I think the Lord was like, I have something else for you to do. But I didn't pay attention. I took a year off and then I went back to work. And I thought Jesus said, okay, this, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I still don't know. But 8 months later, Josh, they fired me.
They fired you?
They fired me.
You mean they did that 5-letter word that we all dread, that I know that really hurts a lot of people to the core because they think they're not good enough?
What's that 5-letter word?
Fired?
Fired.
Wow.
Fired me. And now they fired me because they were doing illegal stuff. And I'll just give you one example. I don't know all the illegal stuff they were doing, but this was the part they wanted me to participate in. And I will say this for you and for all listeners. Our integrity, you know, people say your word is all you have. So translate that to our integrity is the only thing we have to stand on. And if I compromise it for anybody, then I compromise it for myself. And I'm the only person who has to live with it. Ultimately, it impacts other people, but I got to deal with that. And so finally finding Jesus Christ, I was like, this is a no. I answer to him. I don't answer to y'all. He'll take care of me. So they were asking people to drive cars in Georgia that their tags were out of date, but not like 3 weeks. Like we're talking like 3 months, like 6 months. Like we just want to send people. And this is the company vehicles that a whole lot of people are driving. And we want to send them out in this and tell them, oh, if you just get stopped, I don't even know what we were supposed to tell them. But I live in Georgia, and in Georgia, we had some challenges with police officers and stops that sometimes went wrong. One, I'm not willing to sign off on people doing illegal stuff. Like, I know your tags are wrong, and I'm going to willingly send you out. Nope. And then 2, I want to put your life potentially in danger if you get stopped. Nope. So I continued to make a lot of noise, and they fired me. But I will say, they also had filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy. They're not in business anymore. Mm. Just in case when people want to do stuff that's not as it should be, sometimes things don't work out well. So 3 jobs in 4 years. And that's how I realized the Lord was like, I need you to not work for anybody else. I need you to work for you. And that's how I came to podcast and then my podcast business extension and everything I do now. Of course, I am curious for you because you own your own business, Josh.
Yes, I do.
And you have your own podcast. So
Yes.
is this all that you do?
I actually have a full-time job in which I've worked with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, being a civil servant for over 13 years, which I'm hoping that once I get my 6 to 7... Notice that I said hoping. I had to stop myself for a second. When I do, when it happens, because it will happen, I will be able to walk away with a life of freedom doing what I really want to do, because I'm really passionate about what it is, Kanesha, that I've been able to achieve. But at the same time, you said something that really resonates with me, and I think it resonates with our listeners as well, which is about not only integrity, which is one of the biggest things that sometimes we lose when it comes to having the soul sucked out of us by corporates and people in suits and things of that nature, when we necessarily know that we're doing the right thing, although they don't realize they're doing the wrong thing. But it's really about not only looking deep inside of yourself of what you need to do to change, but to continuously push the needle so that you are living with the best version of yourself, which I know what you're saying. And I feel that for so many people, it's a struggle. I mean, do you agree with that?
I'm so glad you brought that up. And yes, I do. Because this is what I want to say. Being called out of corporate America, so 3 jobs, 4 years, 3 layoffs. Okay. People might be wondering, how are you surviving? And so I, in my new Christian walk, was like, oh, Jesus is going to rain down money like he rained down manna from the earth. No, he can, but no, that's not what happened. And so to your point of having to basically put one foot in front of the other, make sure that I am staying focused on what I'm doing and pushing through. Like, since losing my job or being fired, let's call it what it is, I've had to figure out how I'm going to bring in income while building a business, right? Because the podcast didn't officially launch until February, and we're still in the process of monetizing it. And so I want to make sure people know, like, whatever you have to do to make your dream work, do it. Like, there's no shame in it. There is no, I need to look a certain way. People need to perceive me as, no. Do whatever you need to do that's legal, moral, and ethical, right? That is going to help you get to the dream that you know is meant for you and that you're working for. And however you got to get there, it is fine. So, like, I substitute teach now. I love that because I can pop in when I want to, and I don't have to when I don't want to, but it allows me additional income in addition to building the podcast, right? And then I'll look for other little ways to bring in money, but I do whatever I have to do. And then the other thing is structuring your day. And so, Josh, I admire you because you are running multiple businesses, because I consider a podcast a business in and of itself, along with your coaching business, along with working a full-time job, right? Along with you love to speak, right? You're doing a lot. And so there's got to be management of your time, right? And you have to push through those days that you don't want to do anything, like where you just are tired. I'm sure you've had those.
There's a couple things that you said that I definitely need to interject and say, because first off, you're right. It is about time management. And for maybe people that don't even realize this, it isn't about working the 9 to 5. You have to work the 5 to 9 lifestyle. Good. Because I learned that many, many decades ago, and it's stuck in my brain that in order to achieve awesome opportunities in life, we have to put in a little bit extra energy and time into something that we do. It doesn't mean doing it for the wrong things, because I will say that for much of my life, I was doing that. I was doing it for the wrong reasons. But now I'm realizing through self-revelation that I have this time available to me. Why not use it for something that is really good? Why not surround myself with a family of different people that help create that synergy or that synergistic opportunity that we all have deep inside of ourselves so that we can do that? But there's even something else that you said, is that some people don't just get a handout saying, here you go, here's your business, you can start this. This isn't how it works. You have to build it from the ground up, which means you might have to have a full-time job. There is no shame in that whatsoever. So I commend those people that have to do a full-time job and then do multiple other jobs in order to start that business.
Yes.
I can't stress that enough. I think some people think, oh yeah, you have to give that all up so that you have 2 feet forward into what you're doing. You need to do it full time. And I think for all the people that say that, you're lousy coaches. And I'll say that on the record because you don't realize that sometimes the biggest sacrifices that people have to make is the monetary aspects of their life. They need to be able to have a quality life in order to live. So now that I'm done with my soapbox, I'm going to put it away and let you speak again.
No, that's a good
really
soapbox.
important. Yeah.
It's a good soapbox. And I want to stay there for a minute because it's not shameful to work and build your business at the same time. Okay. And so we all come into awareness of stuff when it's something that we're looking for, consciously or unconsciously. I say that to say most of the social media that I see now is build your 6-figure coaching business because, you know, I'm in the space of coaches. You are a coach, right? So this is what pops up on my feed. That's what I'm looking for. Build your coaching business in 6 hours a week and make $100,000. Lies. But for whatever reason, that is what constantly comes through my social media feed, whatever I'm looking at. But the reason I point that out is because that's not reality, right? And we're fed that message. And instead, we need to bypass all the crazy that tells us you can do less work and get more results. Yes, there is a way to do less work and get more results. When you delegate that work out to somebody else, the work does not change. Okay, so I want people to hear that. The work does not change. You may do less because you are delegating out, which means you need to pay somebody, or I am a proponent of interns. If you don't have interns in your business, I actually have one. I'm on the hunt for 2 or 3 more. It's wonderful for your interns to be able to get experience and then you to be able to get labor that does not cost you at this point in your business. But it's not, you can do it at any point in your business, right? There are multi-million dollar companies that have interns. Hello.
And the job experience is so important. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And to be able to provide that, be a mentor. So as you're building your business, you're building a business for a reason. Whether you're not, even if you're not building a business, let's say you're a public speaker and you want to do that alongside your full-time job, get an intern, mentor somebody, mentor a child, a high schooler, a college, give them an opportunity to be in your space and get mentorship and get on the job experience. Hello, that's a win-win for everybody. But again, I digress. We have to realize that building a business, the work has to be done. And people who are putting in that work, those who actually have jobs, sometimes do better than those of us who do not. And why do I say that? Because Josh, do you know, there are days that I choose, note the word I said, choose, not to make a calendar plan for my day, and I get jack done.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Or at least let me say, nothing that's going to propel my business forward. Right.
Yep.
And so just to speak from the heart, to be transparent with you guys, there are days as entrepreneurs, we just don't do what we're supposed to do. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a person and you have a to-do list, like you probably know this. If we don't make a plan, we don't do it. And so those who actually, have you ever heard the saying, busy people get more done?
Yeah,
Like,
I've heard that, and I think that's a bunch of hogwash, to be honest.
Oh, we got to talk about it. I believe it because I love what you said. Work your 5 to 9 like you work your 9 to 5. Those of us who are not working can sometimes, if we don't plan out the day and schedule it, oh my goodness, we can work 9 to 9 and get done a third of what you guys get done, right? So I think it's important. Yes, what you said is true. People need to know you can build your business alongside another business. I am in this full time, but I have, quote unquote, a job that allows me to keep my focus, that I have to be more specific with my time. But now I'm curious. I want to know, Josh, you said it's hogwash that
Yes.
people, busy people, what is that? What is that about?
I have seen time and time again people that think that, oh, if I just remain busy, I will be able to make the connections. I'll be able to have this opportunity that maybe other people don't have. So it's sort of a double-edged sword, right? So I have to walk back my soapbox now and be like, well, maybe 5 to 9 might be unrealistic. But here's the thing. There's one universal concept that we often forget about, which is balance. And I think that we need to have a balance between when we're working, but also taking intentional time for ourselves. And my listeners have heard this a lot about my own personal story. I never took the personal time for myself. As a matter of fact, Kaneshi, I feel like you and I kind of come from this because you have been over 2 decades in the corporate world, leading people, over 600 employees at one point, over $300 million in revenue.
Yeah.
You understand that it's about balance, because if you are just trudging and trudging along, and you're taking your computer at home and you're still trudging and trudging along, where's the time for you? Where's the time for you to be able to finally say, I need to do something that I really enjoy? And I think that, yeah, some people like doing that. And for all those people that do, I bless you, because you certainly have been able to do that. But I think that we often get burned out as a result of just doing that work over and over again. But I'm curious, because you asked me that question. I want to ask you this. Because you're on the other side of being part of the corporate world, and you are almost ready to start your own business, which we were just talking about too, what would you say is really your motivation for doing it? Is it because you want to do something that you passionately enjoy? Is it because you want to have your own freedom? Because I think that even nowadays, those become cliche statements. In other words, what is your real reason? Now I'm asking you to really speak from the heart, Kaneshi.
The reason I pause, Josh, is because I love it. I love your podcast, Speak from the Heart. And
Thank you. You're not the only one to say that. Yes.
Oh my goodness, I love it. It almost gives us the freedom to say those things that you normally wouldn't say out loud. You might tell yourself, but I'm gonna share. So that question is a good question, because I'm still looking for the passion that's driving me. But this is what drives me, and I don't understand it. And so for me, I have to learn to be comfortable in this space until I get some clarity. Literally, I'm doing what I'm doing, my podcast, the business that I'm going to start. And I also trade in the stock market right now poorly. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah. As of the time of this recording, the stock market has not been doing very well whatsoever. Yes.
It's not. No, I have not been trading it well, but I will get better. But all of those two things that I'm doing literally is out of obedience. And so I want your listeners to hear this, that you may have this inclination, this idea that just will not allow you to let it go. Like, it just keeps coming up. People keep saying it. If you are religious and you follow whomever you follow and you feel like that's been your inspiration, what have you, like, there's just something that just says, this is what you're supposed to do. And nobody else agrees with you. Everybody else thinks you're crazy. Everybody else is like, what are you doing? This is either not going to work, or you need to stay in a 9 to 5, or you may be in a 9 to 5 and you're sacrificing something to do this dream. And they're like, you don't get why you're still on that path, but you are, and nothing is making sense around you. That's honestly where I am, but you're just doing it out of obedience. You're doing it out of, I like what you said, revelation that you had, right? For yourself. You know that you know that you know, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And then you just do it. And we have to trust, and we have to have faith that it will reveal to us, if we don't know why, that why will come. If we don't know where the things are going to come from, that the people are going to come from. I'll tell you, when I started my podcast, oh my goodness, Josh, to be able to interview multi-millionaires on a podcast that was just starting. So I had no followers, and I have people saying yes. For me, that's only God, right? Like, that's only doing what I'm supposed to do. And it wasn't hard, right? I love your podcast because you're way booked out as far as episodes dropping. And I am done for my podcast through the end of the year. Like, if I didn't do another interview until January, I'd be good. But I didn't do that. I'm not anybody. I am. Everybody's somebody, but I'm not anybody that people would know.
I was going to say, you are somebody to me because
somebody.
you're on the show. Yes.
But, it's not, these individuals don't know me. I don't have a big following to say come, but they came. And so what drives me is just the desire to do what I'm supposed to do. And I love the other thing I'll say really quickly, because we were talking about this, like, don't go on forever when you're answering a question on a podcast. Just a little tidbit. But I will say this. When I created my Instagram handle, it's the Connection Collaborator. So y'all can find me on IG at the Connection Collaborator. And I was like, I don't even know where this is coming from. Why is this my handle? But as God has revealed it to me, like, I get to connect people. So I will say, I love and enjoy what I get to do. And I just don't know the big why yet, but I am continuing on the path. out of obedience. And commitment is doing what you don't want to do or doing what you said you were going to do, even when the feeling that you had when you said it is long gone. And that's what I'm walking in right now.
I left the last part as a cliffhanger for our next part of this episode, in which Kaneshi and I continue our conversation about the importance of moving forward, being able to understand that the path that we normally walk on can have its own unique challenges. But even with all this said, let's recap what we've heard so far, because this was an absolutely fascinating conversation about how the level of perseverance moving from one point to another can make such a big difference, especially when you're laid off 3 times from your job. And I think that is something we all have experienced at one point or another, whether we've been fired, whether we have walked out of the job that we have been in for many years because of frustrations. Regardless of what circumstances or situations, we've at least had that thought one time or another of quitting and moving on. And it might not have been just from a job perspective. We all have this mindset shift that we continue to go through in our lives because we start to understand more and more and more about what we want to do in our lives. And I think this is what we obviously are trying to do to move forward for ourselves. We have to be able to get something from the things that we spend the most time in, which for many of us, working is predominantly the biggest part of our lives. Or should it be? Is anyone really helping us to get to that next step, that next part of our adventure that we want to live in? Are we really standing up for our own beliefs? Can we do that despite the fact that we have to slave away at a job that maybe is not fulfilling who we are? But I think that we need to stay focused, and Kaneshi really talked a lot about what we can do to help create that dream for us, regardless of what that looks like. It's not just the things that we try to create to help us to understand what that dream is all about, but we have to stay focused with it. And I think that our focus gets shifted from all the different aspects of our lives, whether it's from the home, whether it's from the other people that we are trying to support. It could be a mixture of medical, physical, other sort of aspects of our lives that even in previous episodes we've talked about the importance of that balance. Being able to understand how much we can give, but how much we need to take too, because we need to sustain ourselves. But the biggest thing that really stuck out in part 1 of this conversation is that we have this bad messaging that we have to hear from others time and time again. I think that we need to bypass that bad messaging in order to do the stuff that is really necessary for our own enrichment. And I love the fact that Kaneshi even talked about the fact that even for a business model, we try to do that with interns, because interns in themselves can help to create some of that value while giving them some practical starting out experience. Being an intern myself at the Department of Justice many moons ago, I got to learn firsthand the aspect of public service and what was really necessary for us to defend the constitutional rights of other victims of foul play, whether it was from drug smuggling or other sort of human smuggling or trafficking, as I worked in the domestic security section at that time. It taught me a lot about what the federal government can obviously do to help protect our rights, but at the same time work with some talented, thoughtful, considerate people that have been going the distance in helping to protect others. But are you going to ignore the signals that are around you when you have those sort of ploys or those trouble spots that go along the way? I think we need to start having candid conversations with each other about the importance of not just working through some of those difficulties, but we also have to stay focused with what that means. And that focus is often shifted from the fact that we have all these different problems that we got going on in our lives. But that's why it's so important to connect with the right people. Connections that are made, not just in the professional realm, but also in the personal realm, can make such a big difference in the overall grand scheme of things. I know for a fact that if it wasn't for some of the professional development opportunities that I've had in my life, let alone the people that I've encountered, I would have never been able to open my coaching business, Your Speaking Voice LLC. As a matter of fact, some of my first clients out of the gate were some of my friends that really needed some help and I knew that I had something that I could potentially give to them. But you can't always rely on your friends forever, which I've also evolved and now been working with other entities and other groups as a result of my work just starting out. But that's the whole deal, ladies and gentlemen. We all have to start somewhere, and your friends can be the starting point for all kinds of different things that are happening, regardless if it's in your business, regardless if it's in your personal life. I think that we often have trouble trying to change our mindset because we're then surrounded by some very toxic people. I can't count the numerous amount of times I've had people in my life that were just so toxic in nature that it literally debilitated me from being able to create those best opportunities in my life. I would even want to mention their names, but the fact is that those names don't matter anymore. And obviously enough, those people probably aren't thinking about me as well. So why give them more credence than what is really necessary? But that's what I did for the longest time. Kaneshi could have done the same thing. She could have held on to those people that really did her in by laying her off 3 times. But instead, she started to create a journey for herself. Not only doing the Coach Up podcast, but also starting her own business, being able to help others with generating that revenue. Money is not the sole object of starting a business, and I think that we've talked about that in numerous episodes, even starting with Kyle Slaymaker, in which we even started to talk about in that episode the importance of having a good relationship with someone. But there's something about Kaneshi that has really rubbed me at this point in the interview in a good way, and it's this. She's able to stand up for her beliefs and stay focused. It took a lot of persevering and pushing forward to be able to bypass all those different things that have happened in her life. I think that she has a great support system, and even before we started this episode, we talked about the importance of having that network, and even the people that she was meeting literally after our interview was something that was of great significance to help build her up, not only in the professional sense, but knowing that there's a common connection that lies out there. So for my owners out there, if you have never explored having a small business network of your own, even if you're just a solopreneur or even working with other people in your partnership or other types of business models, you're going to be able to find a lot of support and a lot of networking through just overcoming some of the common obstacles that we all faced when it comes to even starting a business for that matter. But the same goes for even our own lives. If we know that we have those individuals in our lives that can see the signals that are being ignored by us, they can call them out for us to be able to understand that we need to spend some time to work on them. But that's what I think I loved about Kaneshi and what she had shared, because in part 2, there's something that's even bigger that is shared, but I'll leave that for the next part of this whole episode to discuss what those important aspects are that she taught me. But I think that it's really about knowing who your network is, and it's about growing who you are through that network. So let me ask you this today. Are you surrounding yourself with greatness? Are you helping others to shift their mindsets? And are you creating that value, that opportunity that is given to you by moving forward? And is anything that you're doing actually helping for that bigger belief that you have inside yourself and for your other people that you serve, whether they are your customers, clients, or other sort of designated people that you decided to help out? I will say this. The next part of this interview is going to be something that I had never thought I would feel, especially starting this almost a year ago now. But as I've mentioned on other episodes, it's not just about the feeling that we have about these guests or even about what their impact has been on others. It has shown me that there is really the importance of having that meaningful connection and making sure that you surround your tribe, the tribe in which you're building, with the people that you love the most, are willing to give you that support no matter what happens in your life, but are also willing to go the distance. I think that for all of us, part 1 shows us what's really important about what is integrity, respect, and service to others. Because it's all important in the big scheme of things. And you're important too. Give yourself that value and start changing your mindset. Because let's face it, we are all worth it. We are all able to create that value for each other. And even though I keep saying at the end of my episodes that we are awesome people that are worthy of that opportunity, I think that it's more than just the transcendence of thinking that thought. It's about putting it into action. And oh my goodness, will we put it in action in part 2 of my interview with Kaneshi Hart. But until then, thanks for listening to Speaking from the Heart, and I look forward to hearing from your heart very soon.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our podcast and future shows, search for Speaking from the Heart to subscribe and be notified wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit us at www.yourspeakingvoice.biz for more information about potential services that can help you create the best version of yourself. See you next time.